I took a quick cruise out of New Orleans on board the Carnival Valor. I ended up partying at an all-inclusive resort before getting yelled at by the Mexican police. Oh, and I let Carnival pick my cabin. Launched in early 2004, Carnival Valor is part of the very popular Conquest class of ships from Carnival Cruise Line. This 952-foot-long ship can carry just shy of 3,000 passengers. And I booked a 5-night Western Caribbean cruise on board, which included 2 stops down in Mexico. In the interest of transparency, I paid for this cruise from my own pocket, using a casino promotional rate. All in, this cruise cost me $162.86. My cruise aboard the Valor began in New Orleans, and I broke all the rules of cruising to get there. I flew in on embarkation day, and luckily had no problems finding a quick Uber for a ride over to the Port of NOLA. Welcome to the Port of New Orleans. We're going on the Carnival Valor. We're going to be here for 5 nights, going down to Progreso, Yucatan, and we're also going to Cozumel. Let's get on the ship. All said and done, this was a great Carnival check-in process that took about 45 minutes from arrival until stepping on board the ship. All right, all the way through the check-in process, did all the documentation, just had the group called. It's time to get on board the Valor. We're gonna have a good time. 5 nights heading down to Mexico. Can't wait. The weather looks like it's gonna be maybe a little sketch one day, but otherwise it should be a pretty good cruise. Let's get on board. Stepping onto the Valor, you are immediately hit with that America, heck yeah theming that is so prevalent throughout this ship. If you ever want to mess with someone on board Valor, just tell them you'll meet them by the American flag. Being a Carnival cruise ship from the early 2000s era means that Valor is going to have a lot more eccentric decor and theming on board than you might find on some of Carnival's newer cruise ships. And personally, I like that a lot about the Valor. After all, there's nothing more Americana than a Carnival cruise. And since this is a cruise, it's time to head over to the condiments. The mustard, that is. It's time to get mustard. As always, I get too excited and usually go for that first round of drinks, but the first thing you have to do on board the ship is your muster drill. So we're heading to Station D. With mustering out of the way, it was time to start exploring the Valor. And I began my exploration by walking down the length of deck number 5. Here you can find views of the main atrium of the ship and a little bit of shopping along the way. Also, the ship's casino, a nice pub, and the comedy club, along with some cheeky art, can be found on this floor. So a fun fact about me is when I go on cruise ships, I do this thing where I take a picture of myself with the inappropriate cruise art, and well, why don't I just do it live on camera? Right, bananas do not cover whatever that was. Why don't we quickly pivot and talk about my cabin on board? For my cruise, I booked a guaranteed stateroom, which meant Carnival got to pick the room I would stay in. And they decided to book me into cabin 2294 on deck 2 around the midship elevators. Cabin 2294 is a category 4C room, which has a king bed or 2 twins, as well as 2 pull-down beds that are hiding up in the ceiling. But since I'm a party of 1, flying solo, we're going with the king bed configuration for my cruise. A lot of this room is straight out of the Carnival playbook from the early 2000s era. Like most of the cruise ships in their fleet, you're going to find burnt oranges, pinks, and pastel greens all over the place. Overall, the room was in very good shape and exactly what I needed, if not really any more. The bed was oversized and rather comfortable, and across from it, there's a small desk and working area with a mirror, a light, some storage shelves, and the usual uncomfortable Carnival bench to sit on. At the desk, you'll find 1 US outlet as well as a European plug there as well. Heading into the bathroom of this cabin, you really start to see the age of this cruise ship. I did not think that this was in great condition whatsoever. With a slow flickering light above the mirror, a yellowing shower curtain, and overall just the appearance of having been heavily used for the last 20 years, this bathroom was a disappointment. But Carnival did a nice job of at least keeping this room clean, so it didn't really feel icky while I was in here. even though it really needs an update. At this point in the day, I was sort of starting to feel all of that tiredness that comes with waking up early, taking a flight, and boarding a cruise. So there was really only one thing on my mind. All I've wanted for about the last 2 hours was a nap. And after that lovely nap, it was time for one of the most unique experiences about this cruise. But first, what do you call a cruiser without luggage tags? Naked. Make sure that's not you on your next cruise by preparing ahead of time in the Midships Amazon store. In there, you can find all your cruise essentials, including those luggage tag protectors. There's a link down below. One of the highlights of a cruise from New Orleans would have to be the Sailaway experience. And on the Valor, it turned out to be just that. Lit by the fading pink hues of the evening sun, Valor slipped and sliced her way down the many twists and turns of the mighty Mississippi River, heading towards the Gulf of Mexico. I must have explored every inch of the outer decks of this ship during this time, hoping to find a better view with each turn of the river. The sun began to set just as we passed between Dixon and Cockler Bay, just a few short miles from the Gulf waters. Louisiana really does have some funny names for places. Seeing as it was nearly 9 p.m. at this point, I had missed my assigned dinner time and I was now at the mercy of the buffet line. But not to worry, because Carnival usually serves a similar menu in both the dining room and the buffet on board the ship. But unfortunately for me, that menu was not appealing, nor was the state of the buffet. Look at this, not looking good. But not to worry, because there's always an ace up your sleeve in the buffet, and that's the Carnival Deli. When I first started cruising with Carnival, I used to think that this was actually a paid food window. You had to buy the sandwiches there, but it most certainly is free and included with your cruise, and it happens to be one of my favorite stops on every Carnival cruise, mostly for the truffle fries, and in this case, a turkey sandwich on a pretzel bun. Yum. It was at this point in the cruise that I was starting to worry about how the dining and the food experience would be for the rest of my time. You see, I've been on cruises with limited or bad food, and it is never a fun time. So would C-Day Brunch turn things around for me? As I was cruising solo on this trip, I ended up sat at a small table in the corner of the restaurant, which for once had a lovely window looking out to the ocean. Now that's a win. Carnival's C-Day Brunch is basically a hybrid of breakfast and lunch, hence brunch. And I took advantage of that by ordering a yogurt parfait, eggs with bacon, as well as the coveted macaroni and cheese off the kids menu. And despite my earlier reservations about the food on board, brunch turned out to be absolutely lovely. Now, sea days are fun and all and very relaxing, but you didn't come here to see me laying around the pool for the next 5 minutes. So let's fast forward a bit to day number 3. In Cozumel, Mexico, where ironically, I'm about to lay by the pool. But this one is actually an interesting pool. That's right, we're off to an all-inclusive resort for the day. Welcome to Cozumel. It's day number 3 here on the Carnival Valor. We're heading in to catch a taxi to Mr. Sancho's. If you've never been there, it's a nice little all-inclusive resort. It's about $55-60 for the day. All you can drink, all you can eat. Got a nice pool with a swim-up bar and also a little bit of beachfront. Looks like we're the first ship in port today, so hopefully the taxis are easy to find and Mr. Sancho's isn't that busy for some prime seating.
Good morning.
Hey,
welcome to China.
That's not China. The resort itself is about a 10-minute taxi ride away from the cruise port, and I ended up sharing my cab with a bunch of my new friends from my shared dinner table. Upon arriving to Mr. Sancho's, the vacation vibes were already flowing. Just look at these funny shirts that you can pick up along the way. But let's get checked in and hit up the beach. And immediately, let's start things off right by ordering a bit of food. Here's a sneak peek at some of the dishes on offer. There's this cool looking fish and a bunch of different flavors of tacos, some great proteins. I also ordered some simple chips and guac, as I find that goes best with people watching at the beach. So we're gonna check out Mr. Sancho's a little bit. There's a few things that you can do while you're here. One of them is a little bit of a water park. I'm not really a water baby, so I'm not gonna do it, but I'm gonna show it to you. So if you wanna use the water park here at Mr. Sancho's, it's $12 US. Enjoy it. There's not a lot of people out there. Let's go in. I'm gonna check out the pool now. There's a swim up bar. It's calling my name. Here at Sancho's, you get assigned a server who follows you around throughout the day and makes sure your cup is never empty and your plate is always filled. For those looking for a more relaxing experience, the pool with swim-up bar might be more up your alley here, though you will need to claim a spot by that bar and be ready to hold on to it for dear life, as those chairs are very popular throughout the day. One of the fun things they do here at Mr. Sancho's is write your name with a funny message on each drink that they bring you. Here's a couple of the notes I got today. Now, I spent most of the day in the pool at the swim-up bar, making friends with strangers who were there from several different cruise ships that were in port along with the Valor. But as the day progressed, the usual Cozumel storms were on their way, and soon it was time to wrap up the fun. That's gonna do it for Mr. Sancho's. Time to head back to the cruise ship. Got about 45 minutes left until all aboard. Wow. Man, the camera is off right now. It's not focusing great. Gotta go through all the street vendors here. You know, they're trying to sell you stuff here. Bring some cash if you're in Mexico. It's a great time. A lot of clothes, a few cigars. Isn't it good? Okay, so what did everybody think of Mr. Sancho's?
I had a great time.
What do we think?
Not my first time here. Always a good time though.
Everybody? Sancho's?
I've been here before and I love it. I always love coming back, and it just gets better.
What's the best part?
The weather cooperated.
The weather? Yeah.
The weather
Pool
cooperated.
for me.
Drinks.
Pool, drinks, weather.
All you can drink, all you can eat.
That's gonna do it for Cozumel, Mexico. It's time to get back to the ship. All right, I'm not sure if it was the sun or all of the margaritas at Mr. Sancho's, but looking at my camera, my SD card, the only footage I have for the rest of day 3 on this cruise was this picture of a water spout that was on the side of our ship as we were leaving. These are actually fairly common to see from cruise ships, but it might be worrisome for people who haven't cruised much because, well, seeing this on land would be pretty scary. The following day, I found myself in a very unique place indeed. Progreso. Yes, it's a longer name and surprisingly, an even longer pier. Progreso is a less frequently used cruise port on the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula, and this is actually my first time here. The port itself is a little bit older and it's a pretty sleepy one. And there is a small shopping area right outside the cruise ship, but for the most part, this area is used as a place for you to wait to catch a shuttle bus and ride down what might be the longest cruise pier in the world. Checks notes. Just kidding, it is the longest cruise pier in the world at a few feet shy of 5 miles long. The bus service is free and you're able to catch a ride about every 20 minutes going each direction. All right, it's time to catch the free shuttle all the way down this super long pier. See what's on the other side. I think there's some pretty good shopping. Maybe a beach or two. Boarding the bus was very quick for me, and there was no line whatsoever, and I snagged a comfy seat in the coach and sat for what ended up being about a 10-minute drive to the mainland of Progreso. Eventually, the bus does actually make it to land, and you end up driving through a sort of older portion of town, and eventually they let you off in a little local straw market where you can do some shopping, of course, or in my case, walk to the beach. And as you can see here, for a full cruise ship being in port today, there's really not a lot of people using this beach at all. And I'm very surprised by that because a free beach day is sort of the quintessential thing to do on a Carnival cruise. And this stretch of sand looks really nice, with a lot of little vendors offering drinks and food and even massages all along the way. Now, I had my time at the beach in Cozumel, so I just chose to walk along this little boardwalk, and I ended up finding myself a little bit of trouble along the way. You see, after walking for about 10 minutes, I ended up stumbling across this little fella. This is a pretty neat statue of what I think is a plesiosaur, but it's been a while since I watched The Land Before Time, so let me know in the comments down below if I got this one right. Either way, it looks like a cool photo op, so I walked up these steps to check it out. Up here, I decided to take a few pictures and proceeded to vlog the experience. Well, you never know what you're gonna find on the beach when you're traveling, and here in Progreso, well, it's a giant plesiosaur, maybe? Some kind of dinosaur, very cool. Let me go. When suddenly a voice from a Mexican police officer had something to say to me. Okay, don't climb up the steps that they clearly put in place to view the plesiosaur because I just got yelled at by somebody.
even though there's stairs.
Now, at this point, I wasn't sure if that was actually the Mexican police or just some dude in a pickup truck that was yelling at me for being up on a statue that clearly had steps to it, but I wasn't about to stick around to find out if I was gonna be in trouble. So at this point, I hightailed it back towards the cruise ships. And to blend in along the way, to kind of hide out and lay low, I decided to walk one block off the beaten path where most of the cruise passengers were. And yes, this is something I don't recommend doing frequently in foreign countries, but as you can see from the video here, there's hardly anybody around. And whenever I do something like this in an unfamiliar place, my head is on a swivel and I'm constantly looking in reflective surfaces like cars and windows to see if there's anybody sketchy following behind me. Sketchy beaches. And with dark clouds on the horizon, I made it back to the bus just in time. Just in time to spend the next hour waiting for it to take me back to the cruise ship. For some reason, it took me at least twice as long to get back as it did to get off the cruise ship. I don't know why. Now, with just one sea day left on this cruise, it's time to talk about my overall review of the experience I had on Carnival Valor. Obviously, this cruise got off to a rough start with the food situation. It's hard to complain given the price that I paid, but had I been on a standard cruise fare, I would have been pretty mad about the dining options on night number 1. Now, that was in the buffet. Fortunately, the buffet turned things around throughout the rest of the cruise. I think I must have just gotten there at a busy time, maybe during shift change, because the rest of the time it was perfect from the second day on. Now, the dining room itself was another strong point on this cruise. They had some of my favorite dishes on offer almost every single night. Service in there was exceptional, just as you would expect from any cruise. And the fast casual restaurants on board the Valor, while I didn't film them during my time on board, I can tell you the Blue Iguana and the Guy's Burger Joint on board this ship, well, they're completely unremarkable in all the right ways. And what I mean by that is they are perfectly on brand with Carnival Cruise. So you're gonna be very satisfied with your tacos, your taco bowl, your taco salad, your fish tacos, and your Guy's Burger is gonna come out just how you would expect it. The ship itself overall was in reasonable condition given its age. I think the Carnival is doing a good job at keeping the Valor relevant and fun, if sort of still offering a big peek into the not so distant past of cruising. I know for me, this is the same class of ship that I took my very first cruise on, so I might have some rose-colored glasses on for this Conquest class of ships. They do have some issues though, especially with getting around to different venues. It's not great. The decor, it's not modern like I mentioned earlier, and a lot of people might hate it, but I think it's still a fun experience overall, and one that I would recommend you trying if the price is right. After all, it's not often that you can say you sailed down the mighty Mississippi River at sunset on a cruise ship. The only thing that could be better than that is sailing up an icy fjord in Alaska. Why don't you join me for that in this video? We'll see you there. La 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 la